My name's Noah. I'm 24. A couple months ago, I moved into this house out on the edge of town, nothing fancy. Just me, a couple of mismatched chairs, and a second-hand couch that sags a little too much. I'd been working this new job, remote stuff, IT, and figured it was time to get some space of my own. Not that I had anyone to share it with. Just me. No family nearby. No pets yet. I keep telling myself I'll get a dog. Still haven't. Anyway, it was the end of one of those long, dragging days where nothing really happened. I remember I was heating up a frozen pizza, those cheap kind that somehow always burn on the edges and stay cold in the middle, when someone knocked at my door. I hadn't been there long, didn't really know my neighbors, so it caught me off guard. I opened the door and there she was. Claire Hastings. I didn't know her name yet. Just saw this woman, maybe around 40, standing there in these faded jeans and a tank top, hair pulled back, no makeup, like she'd just come in from doing yard work. She had this look about her. Not the kind of beauty that tries too hard. More like, she just knew who she was. Confident. Calm. Like nothing rattled her. She smiled, just a small, lopsided kind of smile, and said, "Hi. Sorry to bother you, I live next door. There's a raccoon in my basement, and I'm not great with things that growl." I probably blinked too many times before I answered. She laughed, and that broke whatever awkwardness was building. "Could you maybe just help me chase it out? I'll owe you dinner or something." So, I followed her across the yard, and I remember thinking, I've barely unpacked my socks, and now I'm being recruited for wildlife control. Her house was bigger, older. The kind that had creaky floors and heavy wooden trim. Lived in but beautiful. In the basement, the raccoon was gone. Or hiding. Either way, I pretended to look around and ended up helping her move a couple of boxes stacked near the old boiler. I think we both knew the raccoon wasn't the reason she knocked. We stood there for a while after. Talking. Her husband, Michael, was out of town for work. He travels a lot, she said. Then she mentioned her daughter, Isabel, was away at college in another city. "It's just me most of the time," she said, and there was something in the way she said it. Not bitter. Just honest. She offered me a drink, I declined, and then I left. But that night, lying on that old saggy couch, I couldn't stop thinking about her. About her eyes, her voice. The way she stood with one foot slightly turned out, like she didn't even realize it. I told myself it was nothing. Just a neighbor being nice. Then it happened again. A few days later I was mowing the lawn when she waved from her porch. Walked over to say hi. Said something about needing to replace a light bulb in the hallway and asked if I had a ladder. I brought mine over, fixed it in 5 minutes. She made coffee, we sat in her kitchen. Talked about the town, our jobs, her daughter. She had this way of asking questions that made you feel like you mattered. After that, it kept happening. Little things. She'd catch me in the yard, ask me to help move a chair, fix a drawer, check the attic vent. Always something. Always simple. But always her. And I always said yes. I didn't know what was building, not exactly. But something was. I could feel it. And here's the thing, I don't think I was the only one feeling it. There's this moment I keep coming back to. Maybe 2 weeks after the raccoon thing. I was sitting on her back porch, Claire's porch, I mean. She'd invited me to stay after helping her bring in groceries. It was late afternoon, warm and windy. She handed me a glass of lemonade and sat across from me, her feet bare, legs curled beneath her on the outdoor sofa. A strand of her hair had come loose, and she tucked it behind her ear absent-mindedly while asking about my family. That's when I realized, she didn't talk like someone making small talk. She really listened. And I didn't talk like someone being polite. I told her about my dad passing away 2 years ago, about how I left my last job because I hated who I was becoming. How I moved here to start over. I hadn't told anyone that. Not even my closest friends. She looked at me, not with sympathy, just this quiet understanding, and said, "Sometimes, a new place is the only way we let ourselves breathe again." That moment. I don't know. It stayed with me. The thing is, she didn't try to be anything. She just was. Honest. Sharp. Beautiful in this very real way. Like she wasn't trying to prove anything to anyone anymore. We kept seeing each other. More than we should have. It started with little things. She'd text me now and then. Nothing flirty. Just things like, "Do you know anything about fixing a garbage disposal?" or "Would you mind helping me carry some boxes from the garage?" It always felt casual. But each time I walked into her house, I felt something shift. Once, I caught her watching me while I reached for a shelf. She didn't look away. She held my gaze for maybe half a second too long, and something settled in my chest I hadn't felt before. Another time, I was replacing a light fixture in her hallway. She stood behind me, close. Closer than she needed to be. And I could feel her breath when she leaned in to hand me the screws. My hands trembled a little. I laughed it off, but she didn't. She just watched me with this soft look like she already knew. We never crossed a line. But the air between us was full of tension, like static before a storm. Our conversations grew slower, more careful. We'd sit in her kitchen after I finished a task, her making tea, me trying not to stare too long. Sometimes she'd tell me about Isabel, about how she missed her daughter but was proud of her independence. Once, she mentioned how quiet the house felt now. "Too quiet," she said. "It echoes in places I didn't expect." I didn't know what to say to that. So I just nodded. I think that was the moment it started feeling like something more. She stopped wearing shoes around me. Little thing, right? But somehow intimate. Her hair was down more often. Once, when we were walking back from her shed, she laughed at something I said and touched my arm lightly. It was nothing. But it stayed. Then came the attic. She asked me to help her check a leak. It was early evening, sun going down. The attic was warm, full of dust and old boxes. We moved a few things, trying to find where the insulation had shifted. I reached over to hand her a flashlight and accidentally brushed her cheek with my fingers. Just a soft graze. She turned to look at me, and I swear the whole room went quiet. She didn't move. Neither did I. Her eyes were on mine, and I saw it there, whatever we'd been avoiding. My heart was pounding, and I didn't even realize I was leaning in until I was too close to pull back. And then, our foreheads were touching. We didn't kiss. Not yet. But it was closer than it should have been. Her breath hitched. She whispered, "Noah." And I should have apologized. I should have backed away. But I didn't. I just stayed there, feeling the heat between us, until she finally stepped back. We didn't say another word that night. We finished checking the insulation, and I left through the side door, mumbling a goodnight that felt completely out of place. But everything had changed. Neither of us said it out loud, but we both knew, the line had been drawn in dust and old insulation. And we'd already smudged it with our breath. I didn't see her for 3 days after that. I kept telling myself it was good, that maybe we needed space, that maybe it was nothing. But every time I passed by her house, I found myself slowing down. Looking at her windows. Wondering if she was looking back. She wasn't. Then on a Thursday afternoon, I came home to find a note under my doormat. It was folded neatly, written in handwriting I recognized right away. Just a few words. "Keys under the mat. Come by if you have time." See. I stood there on my porch for a full 5 minutes, staring at it. Thinking about the attic. Thinking about her voice saying my name like that. I didn't eat dinner that night. Didn't even change out of my work clothes. I slid the key into my pocket, crossed the lawn in the growing dusk, and let myself into her house for the first time. She was in the kitchen, barefoot, in a soft cotton dress that fell to her knees. Music was playing low, something old, familiar, maybe Billie Holiday. She looked up from the counter where she was slicing peaches and said, "You came." I just nodded. Couldn't get my voice to work right. She poured us each a glass of wine. No questions. No small talk. We sat at the kitchen table, the light above us warm and dim, and talked like we hadn't almost crossed a line 3 nights ago. She told me about a book she was reading. I told her about the kid at work who locked himself out of a server room. We laughed. The wine made things feel looser, but not unreal. Eventually, we moved to the living room. She curled up on the far end of the couch. I sat at the other, like usual. But this time our knees brushed. Neither of us moved. After a while, she said, "Do you ever miss your mom?" It caught me off guard. "Yeah," I said quietly. "I think I miss the idea of her more than anything." She looked down into her glass. "I get that." A long silence passed. The kind that didn't feel empty. Just full of things we hadn't said yet. Then she got up to grab a blanket from the armchair and dropped it gently over my lap, same as she'd done once before. "It gets cold in here after sunset," she murmured. Her hand lingered. I reached up and touched her wrist, just lightly. Her skin was warm. And then, so slowly it didn't feel like it was happening, she sat down beside me. Closer this time. Our shoulders touched. Neither of us spoke. I turned my head, barely, and she did too. Her eyes found mine. There was no hesitation in them. Just this quiet permission. I leaned in. She didn't stop me. Our lips met. Soft. Careful. And then again, deeper. Her fingers curled against my neck. Mine on her waist. We didn't rush it. We didn't speak. It was like something we'd been building to without even realizing it. Something old and new all at once. When we finally pulled apart, she rested her head against my shoulder. Her breath was steady, slow. The wineglass sat untouched on the coffee table. The music had stopped, but I hadn't noticed. "This wasn't supposed to happen," she whispered. "I know. I don't want to hurt anyone. I know." We didn't say more than that. We didn't need to. That night, I didn't stay. I stood after a while, still feeling the warmth of her hand in mine, and she walked me to the door. She didn't kiss me goodbye, but she didn't let go of my hand until the last second. I crossed back into my own house like I was stepping out of a dream. The key was still in my pocket. I didn't sleep much that night. But I didn't regret it either. The next evening, I found another note. Just one line. "Tomorrow. After 6. If you want." And underneath it, drawn in pencil, a small heart. I stared at it for a long time. Then folded it in half, and slid it into my desk drawer. After that night, everything softened and sharpened at the same time. We didn't talk about what we were doing. We didn't try to define it. But she kept leaving the key under the mat. And I kept finding it. Her house became something else. Not just a place next door. It felt like a pocket of air that didn't belong to the rest of the world. Like time bent a little differently inside. She would text when Michael was gone. Sometimes just, "You around?" Sometimes, nothing at all. I'd just know. I'd knock, but she'd already be unlocking the door. I'd step in, and the lights would be low. The smell of simmering garlic or fresh rosemary would be in the air. She cooked, sometimes. Other times, we just shared a bottle of wine and ordered takeout. We'd sit in the living room, legs tucked beneath us, sharing dumb stories or talking about things that didn't feel safe to say out loud anywhere else. There was something in those nights, those quiet, steady evenings that felt suspended. We weren't sneaking around like in a movie. We weren't doing anything wild. Mostly, we talked. Laughed. Held each other. And kissed. Sometimes for hours. Sometimes slowly. Sometimes in silence. I remember one night in particular. It had rained all day. The air smelled like wet leaves and earth. I came over with a bottle of wine I'd picked up from a gas station, cheap stuff, but she smiled like it was thoughtful. We sat near the fireplace, not quite touching. She had a photo album open, one from years ago. Isabel as a toddler, Michael in his younger years, a Christmas tree that leaned slightly to the right. This house used to be loud, she said. Always something going on. Toys on the stairs. Muddy shoes in the hallway. Now I talk to myself just to hear another voice. She said it with a small smile, but her eyes didn't match it. I reached over and touched her hand. She didn't pull away. That night, she fell asleep with her head on my chest. Her breathing slow. Her hand resting over my heart. I stayed still, afraid any movement would break the spell. I don't know what to call what we had. It wasn't just physical. That wasn't the core of it. It was how she looked at me when I was rambling about some stupid tech support call. How she poured tea like it was a ritual. How she laughed, softly, when I told her I'd never been west of Illinois. She made me feel seen. Not watched. Seen. And she told me once, very quietly, while I was helping her bring down the old Christmas lights from the attic, I feel alive again. Not young. Not free. Just, present. That hasn't happened in a long time. I didn't know what to say. I just nodded. But all the while, in the back of both our minds, there was a ticking sound. Because it couldn't last. We never said it, but it hung in the air every time I kissed her goodnight, every time she paused before unlocking the door for me. There were too many variables. Too many chances for everything to fall apart. Michael came home more often now. Unpredictable. Business meetings that used to last weeks now ended in 3 days. Sometimes I'd be halfway across the lawn, heading toward her porch, and get a text, "Don't come." It started happening more. And then the silences grew. She stopped leaving notes. Stopped unlocking the door before I knocked. Our conversations grew shorter. Our dinners more quiet. We never fought. But it felt like watching something beautiful slowly fade into the fog. The last night I was there, I found a mug I had used left in the sink. Unwashed. That never happened before. She sat across from me at the table and asked if I was thinking of moving. Out of town. I'd told her once, a while back, that I'd dreamed of Montana. Or Colorado. Some place with mountains. A place where the sky felt big and forgiving. "I think you'd like it," she said. And I asked, "Would you come visit?" She smiled. No. She didn't explain. And I didn't ask her to. We both knew. We sat there for another hour, her fingers curled around her wineglass, mine wrapped around the stem of a fork I never used. And when I finally stood to leave, she didn't walk me to the door. She stayed seated, eyes on the flickering candle between us. I let myself out. Quietly. Slowly. She didn't look up. After that night, the air between our houses changed. I didn't get another text. The key disappeared from under the mat. When I passed her place, the curtains were drawn more often. Porch light on even when nobody was outside. I didn't knock. Didn't send a message. I thought about it, every day for a while. But I didn't. I told myself she needed space. That maybe Michael was home more. That maybe she'd decided it was time to end it before someone got hurt. Or maybe we already had been, and neither of us wanted to say it. So I tried to go back to my life. The one I had before her. I took extra shifts. Helped out at a friend's garage on weekends. Started looking at job listings in Colorado and Montana again. Clicked through pages of tiny towns with wide skies and slow winters. I even found a place near Missoula. Small house. Big trees. I saved the listing. Never called. My house felt empty in a new way. Not lonely, just muted. Like someone had turned the volume all the way down. She never explained anything. Never said goodbye. Never gave a reason. It was like she'd pressed some invisible switch and vanished, into the rhythm of her real life. Into dinner with her husband. Into phone calls with Isabel. Into the safe places where I never belonged. Sometimes I'd still see her. From across the lawn. Watering her plants. Carrying groceries. Once, on a Sunday morning, she passed me on the sidewalk as I was coming back from a run. She was walking her dog. We nodded. That was it. And I got it. It hurt, but I got it. Because this thing, whatever we had, was always borrowed. Always waiting to be returned. She had a life she wasn't going to leave. A world that didn't have room for me. Not in the daylight. And I didn't want to be the person who asked her to choose. Still, the ache didn't go away. It wasn't sharp. Just this constant dull pressure in the chest. Like a memory that stayed too close to the surface. One night, I saw Michael pulling into the driveway, stepping out of his car with a bag of takeout. Claire met him at the door. He kissed her cheek. She laughed. The porch light glowed warm behind them. And I thought, maybe that was always the point. Maybe I was just a shadow she needed for a little while. Something temporary to remind her of a version of herself she used to be. The next week, I packed a few boxes. Just the essentials. Told myself I'd take a trip to Colorado. Just to see. Just for a month, maybe. But I kept finding reasons not to go. One day it was work. Another day it was the weather. Mostly, I just didn't want to admit that I was still waiting for a door to open that had already been locked again. Eventually, I stopped checking her windows. Stopped wondering if she'd text. I let the silence settle in. Not as a punishment. Just as an answer. Still, some nights I'd walk into my kitchen, pour myself a glass of something, and glance toward the backyard, half expecting to see a light flick on. It never did. That was the hardest part, maybe. The not knowing. Not the heartbreak. Not the loss. Just the quiet. The quiet that meant whatever it had been, was finished. Almost a year passed. The seasons turned like they always do, rain on the roof, heat on the windows, leaves on the lawn. I worked. Traveled a little. Never made it to Colorado. Missoula stayed in my bookmarks, but I never clicked contact agent. I dated someone for a while. Briefly. She was kind, smart, had this way of smiling with one corner of her mouth. But it didn't stick. She noticed. Said I seemed elsewhere. I didn't argue. She deserved better than half of someone. Eventually, I moved jobs. Took something quieter in a smaller garage just outside the city. Fewer people. More hands-on. Honest work. The kind that makes you tired in the right way. I stopped driving past Claire's Street. On purpose at first. Then it became habit. Until last week. It was late afternoon. I had taken a wrong turn heading to a supply store I hadn't been to in a while. The road bent, and suddenly I was on her block. Same trees. Same mailbox with the peeling black paint. I almost kept driving. But I didn't. I parked. Walked into the small grocery store on the corner. I remember blinking under the fluorescent lights, trying to slow my breathing, like I hadn't just wandered into a piece of my past by accident. And then I saw her. Claire. She was in the produce section, holding a bunch of parsley, staring at it like it had asked her a question. Her hair was pulled back. She wore a long beige coat and jeans. She looked the same, mostly. Maybe a little more tired around the eyes. Or maybe that was just how the light hit her. I didn't mean to stare, but I did. And then, she looked up. Her eyes found mine. I saw the recognition hit her. First in her face. Then in the way her hands stilled. And then, she smiled. Not wide. Not polite. Just small. Familiar. She walked over slowly. Like someone approaching a bench they weren't sure was still dry. Noah, she said. Her voice sounded like it always had, like it belonged in a kitchen with soft lighting and music in the background. Hey, I said, somehow steady. We stood there in the middle of the store, people passing around us, carts squeaking, a kid crying somewhere near the deli. But it all blurred. You look well, she said. So do you. Silence hung between us for a moment, not awkward. Just full. Isabel's home for the summer, she said. She's interning at the hospital now. That's great, I said. You must be proud. She nodded. Yeah. I am. Another pause. I wasn't sure I'd ever see you again, she said. I wasn't either. She glanced down at the parsley in her hand. Then back up. I think about you sometimes, she said. I do too, I said. It slipped out. Honest. No dressing. She smiled again, softer this time. I should, she started, then didn't finish. Yeah, I said. Me too. She looked like she wanted to say something else. Maybe she almost did. But instead, she reached out, lightly touched my arm, just once. Take care of yourself, Noah. You too. She wished me all the best and left. And I felt my chest tighten. I don't know what it was, but I know I'll never forget it. That night I sat on my porch with a cup of lukewarm tea, watching the sky dim into that soft, violet kind of dusk. The breeze felt like September, though it wasn't. And I kept thinking about the way Claire had said my name. Not like she missed me. Not like she wanted anything. Just, like she remembered. I don't know why that part hit the hardest. I'd told myself the chapter was closed, locked up, pages yellowing somewhere in a drawer I didn't open anymore. But hearing my name from her again, it brought all of it back. The attic. The porch light. The wine in the kitchen. The way she used to touch my hand like it was a question she didn't expect an answer to. It wasn't regret I felt. Not exactly. Just that ache. The kind that shows up when you remember something that was real, even if it couldn't stay. I didn't sleep well. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her again. Not the Claire from today. The one from the garden. The attic. The one who said, sometimes, a new place is the only way we let ourselves breathe again. And maybe that was what we were. A breath. A pause. A moment. She never belonged to me. I knew that. I think I always did. We didn't make promises. We didn't plan a future. But in that small pocket of time between the first knock and the final door closing, we had something I haven't felt since. Something quiet. Private. Real. I still have that folded note from her, the one that said, "Come by if you have time." It's yellowing now, tucked in the back of my desk drawer. I don't look at it often. But I haven't thrown it away. And maybe that's what this all comes down to. There are things you move on from. Jobs. Houses. Plans that never quite fit. But then there are things you carry with you. Things that don't leave bruises but still leave marks. And sometimes, when the light hits just right, you see them again. Not to reopen them. Just to remember they were real. Claire wasn't a mistake. And I don't think I was hers either. We found each other in a season of quiet, in the hush between what we were and what we had to become. And now? Now I work a quieter job. I keep to myself more. I still think about the mountains. Still wonder if I'll ever pack up and go. Maybe someday. Maybe not. But sometimes, I'll pass someone on the street who has her walk. Or I'll hear a song she once hummed in the kitchen. Or I'll wake up from a dream where the porch light is on, and she's standing in the doorway again. And I'll feel it. That familiar, hollow press behind my ribs. She wished me all the best and left. And I felt my chest tighten. I don't know what it was. But I know I'll never forget it.